It's Pueblo's greatest hits, Kpht 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks. Jim, how you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic. I've had two things I get asked all the time. They ask, how come you're not in the Greater Pueblo Sports Hall of Fame? And how come you haven't been on Nick's show? So now I can cross one of those off.
I can't do anything about the Greater Pueblo Sports Hall of Fame, though. But whoever's listening maybe could.
Well,
right?
maybe they could, but maybe they could.
Yeah. But, hey, thinking back, you're a South High grad too, right?
Right, correct. Class of 80.
Class of 80. So you and my brother were close together there.
You were what, 63?
Yeah, I just look that way.
Yeah.
Not really, but I look that way and feel that way. But no, not 63. But class of 80 South. What was your class motto? Do you remember?
The class yell?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I think it was chicken and beer, we'll take it to go, South High class. Let's see. We're the class with pep and go, South High class of Big 8-0.
Oh, very clever.
Right,
very clever. But
exactly.
Where'd you go to like middle school and all that stuff?
I went to Sunset Park. I was a yearling, and then I was a Pitts pony, and I was a South Colt.
See, I was in that transition where went 1 year went to Highland Park, then the next year I went to Pitts, then the next year I went to Roncalli, then the next year I went to South.
Okay.
Every year we had to change.
Right.
But that was middle school to or that was junior high to middle school.
Junior high, yes.
Yeah.
Remember the old junior high football games at Dutch Clark Stadium?
Absolutely.
Used to love those.
Absolutely. Good games out of there.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome.
Yeah. What a lot of things under the bridge back then. We met each other a long time ago here and there through the radio station, but we've never been able to sit down and just chat a little bit. So
exactly,
you got time to sit down and chat a little bit?
Hang out for a while.
All right.
I got nothing else to do.
All right. Jim Brooks in here today on a Friends Friday on Kpht 95.5, Pueblo's greatest hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, Kpht 95.5. Friends Friday, my friend in today, Jim Brooks. We're thinking back a little bit about some of the old days. Now, I know everybody that knows you knows that you're a golfer.
Correct.
A golfer. You junior high, when did you start golfing and all that
I
stuff?
started playing golf actually when I was 8 years old. My dad wouldn't let me play until I was 8. I could go out and caddy
so
for
your
him.
dad obviously golfed then?
My dad taught me. My dad died in 72 when I was 11, but for those 3 years we learned a lot on the golf course. I used to caddy, and then I'd go out on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and if they didn't have 5, then they'd let me play as long as I took my little junior set and ran out ahead of them. I'd have to run to the tee, hit, and then run out into the fairway somewhere while they hit. As long as I always stayed ahead of them, I could never hold them up. So so that's how I.
Great advice, I would think. Yeah.
And then when they did have 5, then I just caddy and watch them. Learn how to gamble that way. Learn how to cuss, basically, is what I did.
Well, I'm sure that didn't take too much there. But so golf has been in your blood since you were 8 years old, before you were 8 years old then, obviously.
Yeah, in fact, the first tournament experience I had, I was at Elmwood. Then it was City Park. Mo Springer was the pro. And I'd signed up for this golf tournament, but you're supposed to be 10 years old. They had a division 10 and 11-year-olds or whatever. And I was only 8, but I was kind of a big-sized kid, so
you lied about this?
So I just went in and signed up, and somebody's parent or kid said, hey, he's not 10, he's only 8, he can't play. In other words, they were worried about the 8-year-old beating him.
Beating him, yeah. How do you face people after that?
So, I'm balling, I want to play this golf tournament. So Mo, he gathers up Steve Ivan and Mike Manata. I don't know if you remember those guys. Steve, of course, is probably the greatest senior golfer maybe in state history.
I went to school with Prim and Ron.
Right, exactly. So he scares up this tournament, and we go over and play the short 9 3 days in a row. Because it was the big Pueblo Junior tournament. So I think I shot 55, 51, 47 on the short 9.
How the heck do you remember all that?
There's some memories on tournaments you remember. I can remember those 3 days, and I read the articles every week.
Well, sure, but that was a big thing when you're that age too,
Yeah, so that was one of the last times I ever beat Steve Ivan. I used to beat Steve up until we were about 12, 13, then he went past me.
Now, you got obviously a great memory. Tony Wright's the same way. Tony Wright remembers everything, and you obviously are the same way. Is that kind of protocol to doing sports or something?
I do not remember anything close to what Tony does.
I don't know how he does that.
He can remember to the minute certain events. Now, he'll bring them up, and then say, oh, yeah, I remember that. But I don't. I can remember certain things.
Because he'll remember the date, the time, the teams that were playing, as the guy's mom was in the stands. I mean,
It's crazy. Now, he listens to a lot of our broadcasts, and so he's like our, I'll bring something up, Joe, and I'll be talking about it, and I can't remember a guy's
and he'll
name.
Text it to you.
He'll tell you, hey, it's that guy. We had some guy, now I'm even forgetting about it now, because Moon Griffin, I think was his name, or Art Griffin. He played for CSU, he was from Wasson.
Okay.
I couldn't remember the guy's name. I knew he was the Moon Man or whatever. And Tony said, don't you mean this guy? I go, that's right.
I thought maybe that was just a sports thing. I don't know.
No, he's awesome.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast most of the time. I do remember that you didn't bring me any breakfast this morning on this Friday morning.
True.
But that's all right.
That's true. Sorry.
Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks, of course, voice of the Pack, CSU Thunderwolves football, basketball, all that stuff. How'd you get into broadcasting? Did you take that at CSUP, or what all went on there?
Well, that's when the professional thing started, I suppose. But as a kid, now this sounds goofy, but when we used to play our games on the street, ever since I was, 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever, when I was a kid, I'd go out on the street and play. Nobody'd want to play or whatever. I'd go out and play my own game, and I would call the game as I was doing it.
So
it's Brooks, the pass, he throws it, it's caught, touch. Not the way I went into my Jeffrey Orman, but that's kind of what I did. And
you're
then
here in the studio. That's how you went into
exactly.
it. Yeah.
So then we do pickup games on the street. We called it the Baylor Sports Complex. I grew up
Sunset Park.
in Baylor, and we'd do the games. I'd call play-by-play of the games we were having. So everybody just kind of
in real time. Obviously,
so if I didn't do it, they said, "Well, why you're not calling the game?" All right, so I'd call the game.
Who would have thought?
As we were doing it.
That's
and I'd interject. Everybody was, especially our basketball games, everybody became a player. We'd play like the Lakers against the Knicks or the Sixers.
Right.
One of my friends was Jeff Redfern. He became Mix. Remember Mix from Philadelphia? And I had that PA guy from Philadelphia. Yeah. Mix! So I'd do the different voices. So I did a few impressions too in those days too. But that's kind of where I...
That's kind of the same story of like Mike Daniels. Mike Daniels used to play music, play spin records in his basement when he was just a kid.
Mike Starr, wasn't he?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Still is, really. But he used to play basketball and stuff with Wallace Cotton. He was the same way, nonstop.
Right,
nonstop.
Always talking.
Always. So it's in your blood then.
Yes.
It was right from an early age, just like golf.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of go hand in hand.
Well, there you go. But later on, you went to CSUP or
yes,
USC?
I'm sorry. Where would we go?
No, you're
that?
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to then USC.
Mm-hmm.
Was in the mass comm department. Don Wayne was my
Who all was in those classes back then?
Oh, geez. Now you're
see, I'm testing your memory.
Pete May, I think, is probably our most famous.
Yeah, it was on Magic FM.
Dude, he's out in Salt Lake City now, I believe. In fact, my wife was in the mass comm department. She was the news director at the old, what was it, Magic 99 or whatever.
Well, where Pete May was working.
Yeah, right out of college. She's a year older, but I think we're about the same year in school. Or maybe, well, I guess I was a year behind. But, yeah, she wouldn't give me the time of day, in fact.
It's funny how that works.
Funny story, yeah. But, yeah, so... I did it then, and then the other guys, Pete May, Don Wayne. Oh, shoot. I can remember the teachers more than anything. I remember Trish Orman was one of the professors, Rick Pavlik. Dr. Anderson. I don't know. You probably didn't. Did you? I don't know if you went out there. You don't remember those guys.
I met him later on.
Yeah, Dr. Anderson was the biggest... I don't know. I can't say the word. But I remember my great journalism, law, and ethics paper I wrote. I mean, that was the big hardest class you had to take. You spent all that time in the law library and did all that. And I did on the fairness doctrine, which is a BS concept is. But so I was all into that. Wrote this great paper. Thought it was going to be the greatest paper ever. C-. It's like, God, get me out of this class. Got my C. Got out of there because in college they didn't care what your GPA
as long as you
was.
got
it. All right, it's like.
You still got a degree for it one way or another.
Yeah, that was the greatest paper ever.
So do you still have that stashed somewhere?
No, I don't. I think I burned it. I think I had a ceremonial burning of that paper.
I kind of wondered about that.
Yeah,
actually.
dang it, man.
Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5. Pueblo's Greatest Hits, brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. It's Pueblo's Greatest Hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks, talking back about some of the old days, college days, whatnot, sports, all the things that you're known for here. And, when you think sports in Pueblo, Lee Douglas's name comes up all the time.
Right.
And I know you guys had some stuff together here and there, right?
Well, I was, when we were back in the college days, when I was an intern. Remember, you always took the internships from USC then,
right.
So you'd go over. So I used to hang out on the weekends for one semester at Channel 5.
Right.
So Lee Douglas is there, of course, and Mike Daniels. That was before they'd hit the big time. They were the weekend guys.
Right.
So you'd go hang out there, and it was just, you just watch sports all day, talk. Then they do their shows, and I remember the sports guys. And I'm trying to remember who the news people were, but they were doing makeup and everything. I always remember that the news people had to have makeup and look good. The sports guys and weather guys, Mike Daniels, he'd go out. He had to just come out for a half hour, do his little charts,
right?
Take off. Who knows what he was doing the other time? Lee and I were watching sports, and the thing I always remember, people thought, well, these guys are always well dressed and everything. They look good on top.
Right,
That's when they were behind the desk, so they were wearing shorts and sandals. And they had their little suit jacket on top.
The weather guy couldn't do that because he had to walk out there.
Well, even at that point, they were still only top. So
really, so they just filmed them.
They weren't that full shots. Yeah, now they got to be looked great all the time because they're all doing those stand-up things. But that's one of the things I always remember about it. But it was fun.
Something that a lot of people don't know is I was the third-string weather guy on Channel 5. And that was some hard stuff to do because, you got to look credible. You got to look right. It was, 50, 60 pounds ago, and I had a lot better hair back then. But
well, didn't we all?
Yeah. It was a lot of stress.
Yeah, the old green screen, right?
Yeah.
I never did any green screen work. I never did any television work as far as reading.
Well, I got up there and you do the thing. Hey, it was a nice day in Pueblo today, Colorado Springs, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Let's check the forecast. And then the camera panned off you and went to the screen, and then you walked out to the green screen. Well, I got out there and realized I didn't have the clicker. So I had to walk back. Well, they kept the camera up on the screen, and I reach down, I get the clicker, turn around, start to walk out, and I step on the mic cord, and it yanks the lapel mic off of me. I had to pick it up off the floor, and I just kept talking. And I put it back on. This is radio stuff, but it's on TV. Luckily, the guy upstairs kept the camera off me. I do the thing. I come back. I sit down, and whoever the anchor was that day when we went to commercial was like, I don't know how the hell you did that.
Yeah, just improvisation.
But you could hear the mic go.
Exactly. What happened? Did you have a crash in the studio?
Yeah. They thought something exploded at Channel 5 up here on the hill at that time. But, radio, everything could be happening and it doesn't matter. But TV, it's right there. As you know, that you're doing TV now with the CSU Pueblo games, right?
We're on Channel 7, SoCo CW.
There you go.
So we're doing our games. It's a simulcast. They use our broadcast.
Right.
They threatened to have this week's games or one of the games coming up. I haven't decided which one. They're going to have cigar cams, they call them, in the booth.
Well, that's what I was wondering. So they weren't in the booth last time?
No, they weren't in the booth this time. They're threatening to have them for the next couple games, or we got 3 games left, I guess, at home. I've done this cigar cam thing for Channel 19 before we were unceremoniously let go by the district.
It kind of adds some pressure to you.
Yeah, so you'd have to turn and look at the old camera and look good for a couple minutes. So radio, you just kind of hang out.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have pants on.
Yeah, exactly. Thank God, Joe.
I am this morning.
I got a funny story there. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that one coming up here. It's Jim Brooks on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks, is we go back a ways together here, but I did wear pants for you today. I knew you were coming in, and that's what we were talking about a little bit ago. In radio, you don't have to wear pants or anything if you didn't want to.
Yeah, I wasn't going to peek over the counter and see.
And I appreciate
I'm just
that.
Trusting the fact that you're fully clothed.
I got 501s on, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, the radio stuff. Just come in however you want.
Pretty
now,
much.
Television, you should look good as well, unless they take a shot of the booth. Now, one time, I'm doing, we did the television with Channel 19 I did that for 24 years. So one year we decided to do some baseball. So we're doing the Annuccio tournament.
Right. Big tournament, too.
So I'm up there with, I'm calling the play-by-play. I think it might have been Wallace Cotton with us.
Okay.
Doing color. And Joe Servey was there doing the game.
Your partner
as
for
well.
the CSU Pueblo game. Yeah.
So all of a sudden we're doing the game, and it's a, it's 100-degree day at Runyon Field, and we're up there in that tin can thing, and it's hot. So we're doing the game, and all of a sudden here comes the center field camera shooting in. Joe is stripped down. He's in his what we like to call the wife beater now, the white tank top,
muscle shirt
T-shirt.
kind of
thing.
So
that's it's like, what the hell? Why did they go to that shot? But they knew it was so hilarious and looked so good to see Joe that way.
I can even picture that. Yeah, I can even
so
picture
we talk about that forever.
They used to have a camera in here. For a while, the big thing was to have a camera in the studios. I think Rush Limbaugh kind of positioned that, so it was to have a camera in the studios. Well, we didn't want a camera in the studio, so I'd always put my hat and cover the camera up. And it's the antics that went on in this room. We didn't want any proof of that stuff.
You're not Benny Bash, in other words. Benny loves the camera.
Oh, I know he does.
Yeah, he does all that stuff.
I know he does. And that's a good thing for him.
Yeah, exactly. It's good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But
he's networking. He's getting himself out there.
Absolutely.
He's looking for dates.
Yeah. We'll just leave that one alone. Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits. Friends Friday brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. It's Pueblo's Greatest Hits, KPHT 95.5. Friends Friday, my friend in today, Jim Brooks, voice of the pack at CSU Pueblo, and many other things. And you guys were doing a bunch of games on TV. What kind of went with all that, like you were talking just a little bit ago?
Let's see. We go back to 1997. In fact, I worked with Wallace Cotton.
Right.
A couple years, and with 1 year. Then I did Rick Upchurch a couple years.
Right,
They married Joe Servey and me. Joe always calls me his work wife. So I think Joe and I were together for 21 years. 24 years in all. But then...
and this was high school football?
High school football.
We did
basically a high school game of the week. There's 1 year we did 18 games.
Wow.
But that was just way too many.
Sure.
In fact, Scott Richards called. I was done doing radio in 90. Let's see. I did the USC Indians from 86 to 91. One of those years they moved over to Paul Richards Station, whatever. That's always. That might even be this now. All the
we
changed,
mixed everything, moved everything around. Yeah.
So then he told me, you're done. I got to bring in a full-time guy. You can do some games here once in a while. I was like, okay. So then 94, it was done completely. There was just
right.
They said we don't need you anymore.
It's crazy how things change.
So I was just dormant. Thought my media stuff was over. In 96, Scott Richards, hey, we're doing TV. Because Lee did it the first year. Lee and Jay Ritchie. And maybe even Dan Rose did it one color for one game or whatever. So they called me and did it. So I did it all through that. Then the year before COVID, I think, was our last year. We were down to only doing about 8 games a year, maybe. The big games plus, maybe a playoff game here and there.
Right.
And there's some wild stories there, those playoff games in different venues. But District 60 and PCC basically got in a tug-of-war over funding. Who was going to charge what? Who was going to do this and that. So District 60 decided they could do it better.
Okay.
So they went full bore in. They probably got a grant. They sunk all the money into cameras. And they were just going to have students call the games. They realized that didn't work. Student, you got to have students. You got to have a clue what you're doing.
Right. At least one person does.
And so then they had a couple other people come in, and it was okay, but it was a little sticking point with some of us that have done it
forever. Yeah.
In fact, the main guy at the district, not Donnie Rubel, I love him, but his superior said, "Oh, we're great. This is better than ever. We're doing it so good." And you tune into the game, and there'd be a blank screen or no audio, or it's like, okay, whatever. You guys are doing it fantastic.
Yeah.
So, in fact, Donnie this year at the end of the fiasco at the Cannon game where they had the big fight, and
right,
he kind of just made light of it. He goes, "I'm still looking for a play-by-play guy. If anybody knows anybody, give me a call." So I, of course, being who I am, I recorded that and said, I know a guy.
Yeah, I just happen to
I know a guy. He
man.
did 24 of these things, but the phone isn't going to ring because the other guy and I don't get along. I couldn't do it. And I couldn't do it. Even if they had asked me while Scott Richards was alive, I wouldn't do that to him. That was kind of the thing.
Right. And Scott Richards, man, what an institution there, What a good guy.
He was a great guy. So that was basically my TV stuff. But yeah, I did 24 years. Had some great state championship games along the way. We did a Canyon City, Woodland Park playoff game from the booth. Then there's the games you do outside, because you go to these small stadiums. I did a Florence game from scaffolding.
You sit on the stands in some of them.
Yeah, behind the stands on scaffolding. So we did that game. It was a great game, Florence, and shoot, I can't remember.
You just hope the weather cooperates on those.
Right.
Yeah.
So did that. Then the crew had to pick up to go back and do the Parade of Pueblo or Parade of Lights in Pueblo. Did a game from in the snow in Delta, Colorado, of all places.
Gosh.
Delta and Florence. That was Rifle. Rifle Bear. Where they eat quarterbacks for breakfast. We're before the game. We're at this Denny's or something. This guy goes, we eat quarterbacks for breakfast here. It's like, okay, dude, whatever. Florence, thrashed them. That's when they were good. Did a game that was in the snow with Jeffrey Orman on a little card table.
Wow.
In the stand, because they didn't have, because these small stadiums don't have enough room in their booths, so you just do it from wherever you do it.
But this is radio once again. Nobody at home knew the difference.
Well, no, this was actually.
This was
these
TV.
are television games.
TV.
Yeah,
well, people at home do know the difference. Then,
yeah. Then in Alamosa we did a game. We were talking about that with some people down in Alamosa this week when we were having a breakfast before the game. We did the Alamosa Pueblo County State Championship game there.
Wow.
From the stands. We had a little easel behind us with backdrop. You just do the game. You just do it wherever you got a headset and just go for it.
Yeah, not all these games are like NFL productions.
No, but we had a truck and it was first class, had 4 cameras, had replay and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were really proud of our product that we did there.
Scott Richards put together some good stuff there.
Yeah, and trained a lot of guys. That have gone on to do some great things. But that's all by the boards now. They do their own thing. It's all in house.
Yeah.
And as they say, you get what you pay for.
Times change, as they say, too. But Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on Kpht 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits. Pueblo's Greatest Hits, Kpht 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks, and sports guy. You were made to be a sports guy, I guess you could say, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So started off young. And
it's my passion.
Who was your, your all-time favorite sports guy? And when I say sports guy, I mean sports broadcaster, I should say.
Oh,
you got Vin Scully, you got all these guys.
Through the years, I tend to like a lot of the play-by-play guys that some people don't really like for some reason. But you go way back. Some of the memories you remember. I always remember Lindsey Nelson. Lindsey Nelson, and Notre Dame football on Sunday morning. Remember we had the Notre Dame football for an hour before. That was the pregame show. You watch Notre Dame kick somebody's butt. Northwestern was unable to move the ball, so they punted to Notre Dame, and then they'd go down and score.
That's the voice you hear on all those videos.
That was Lindsey saying, "Wait, move to further action." He always had those great sports jackets, so I loved him.
What about Cosell? Did you like Cosell? Did you hate Cosell?
Howard, I thought, was awesome for what he did.
Yeah, he was a character.
That's exactly what he was. He was, and I loved the interaction with him and Dandy Don and those guys.
Those early days of Monday Night Football, that was fun.
And then Gifford was just trying to maintain, decorum in there. But,
right.
I like that. Right now, I like Jim Nance. I like the way he does it. Joe Buck, sometimes a little.
What about Chris Collinsworth?
I'm not a big Chris Collinsworth fan. It's the grainy, the voice, that grainy. It's like, clear your throat, dude.
Yeah,
That's what I'm always wanting to say. Can you clear your throat? Clear your throat, Chris.
I've never heard of anybody that says they really like Chris Collinsworth.
He knows his stuff. I enjoy Dan Patrick's probably the guy when we talk about guys as far as hosting or anything. He maintains.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Plus, he was on Happy Gilmore.
Right. He does a little acting.
Was
on
it
the
Happy
side.
Gilmore? Was he on, or the Water Boy?
He was on he's buddies with the guy.
Right.
So it was Sandler. So yeah, I enjoy him. So Cosell was good.
Cosell was entertaining. That's it. He knew how to.
We were talking about Chris Collinsworth. Yeah, Chris Collinsworth. He's knowledgeable. It's just the delivery. I can't stand the gravel. It's like clear your throat, dude.
It's like I said. I don't know too many people. I don't know anybody that say, "Oh yeah, I really like Chris Collinsworth." But anyway, that's water under the bridge, I guess.
But if you can get past the personality thing, he kind of knows his stuff. But
well, you would think so for playing the game as long as he did, things like that.
You go back to my favorite. I love Marlowe with the Nuggets, although we don't get to see him anymore because of the Comcast deal. But you have to be at the bar somewhere and happen to catch the game, then you can't hear him. I liked Al Albert in the day, not Marv Albert. Marv Albert's younger brother was Al Albert. Was the voice
I didn't know that
of the Nuggets. So I used to love listening
to
him on television in the games. In fact, one of the things I use from him is one of my signature call is swish. I loved saying swish because that conveys when a shot
exactly what's going on
is made.
Yeah.
And he used to say downtown, so I used to way downtown. Swish. Yeah. I love that. I think that's one of my.
You're
favorite
painting
things
the
to call.
picture. That's what radio is all about.
People ask, do you like doing football or basketball? I go, you know what, football's all right, but there's all that lag time. Basketball, it's constantly
go.
Plus, I'm by myself.
Yeah.
No offense, Joe.
So
but I control the 5 hours, and then when you start talking to yourself on the air, that's what's fun.
That's what people don't.
You tell a joke to yourself. Oh, that was funny, Jim.
That was funny. I did that really good. Yeah.
Get delirious.
Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks, of course, voice of the CSU Pueblo Thunderwolves, football, basketball, all that stuff, and many other things. High school we were talking about here. Best game you ever called?
The craziest game ever was the Bell game in '99.
Now, what made that stand
69 to 53.
Wow,
was the final.
They didn't have any defense?
No, defense optional.
Yeah, wow.
It was a crazy game. Now, the backstory to that game is
it had to be fun to watch. Anyway,
So I have to be on a plane flying out of DIA. DIA had just opened. This was 1999.
Uh-huh.
So midnight was my flight. I was flying to Atlanta and then down to Jacksonville to do the FCA National Golf Scramble.
Okay, all right.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Right.
I know, which sounds weird with me playing, but I did get in there.
You know somebody.
Yeah, I knew a few guys. Yeah. So I have to get rid of that game.
At like 10 o'clock at the latest, probably.
Yeah. Well, the game keeps going. It's 69 to 53. I mean, there's touchdown. Can we get this game moving on? We got to get this. I got to get out of here. I got to catch a plane. So
obviously there weren't a lot of penalties either.
And before that was before the Pueblo Police Department does a hell of a job now getting people out of the stadium. But then it was chaos.
Right.
So we parked my brother-in-law, Don Ware's truck out on the street, which he let me borrow. His nephew, Rick Ware, was going to be with me, where he was going to come up with me and then drive the truck home after dropping me off at the airport.
Okay.
Catching the red eye.
But this game just keeps going.
Game keeps going. And finally, we get the game over with. It's 10 o'clock. I got to be... The plane leaves at like 12:05.
Right. So this was before you had to be there 2 hours early.
And DIA is way out there. So it's like, well, how are we going to get... We'll get there somehow. So we jump in the truck, and of course you got to weed through the track, get on the freeway, and let's see how fast this new truck. It was a brand new Silverado at the time. No. So we're in this truck. It's got like a governor or something on it at 100. It won't go past 100. So I'm taking my life, my nephew Rick's life. He's excited. He's in high school at the time.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
This is great.
So we're driving like crazy. get out there to the damn. That was when the toll road. You had to stop at each toll booth.
Yeah.
We stop at the toll booth, give the guy the money.
Reaching for
make
change.
it out there. And I'd never been to DIA, so I get up there to I-70, take the wrong exit. Oh no! Get back on the toll road up there, roll in. It's like 5 minutes to midnight, and that's before there's any security. So they drop me off. I run into the building. I go, I gotta catch that flight. All right, train station's down. They're helping me basically. There's nobody at the airport at this point.
Oh man.
So my nephew Rick said they got on the radios right now. We got a runner.
Did you have your clubs? Did you have to
No, they had
clubs?
set my clubs out ahead of time. All
Good.
I had was my little bag with that I took to the game. All my clothes and everything were already out in Jacksonville. They'd gone down the day before. So I'm sprinting. I get there. I get onto the plane. I walked, sit down, and everybody's like, "What's that?" I go, I made it. I was that guy that they held the plane up maybe 2 minutes before they knew a guy was coming. So the plane's full. I apologize. Hey, I'm that guy. Sit down. Short story long, made it to Atlanta, transferred, got to Jacksonville. So then I got to take a cab ride to the T-box down at TPC, and the cab rolls up. It was at that time, it was like a $70 cab ride, which would probably be $150.
Yeah.
So get out. They're doing the prayer. So I'm got to kind of slowly
Try to act
casual. Run over, get in the cart, and go to the first tee. Knocking on the green, playing his par 3, and then it was a scramble, luckily. So, but that was fun.
I kind of had the same thing happen in Vegas one time. We were doing a bowling tournament, and it was the same thing. I was going to miss the plane, and they were running me. I was carrying 2 bowling balls with Lee Douglas and that, but he'd already got on the plane and got out early. But I was running through the Vegas airport carrying 2 bowling balls, and the girl's running besides me. This was way before 911 and all that stuff.
Yeah.
She's running beside me. You don't have any weapons. You don't have anything. I said, no. Get on the plane. And people, I get on the plane and they say, we held the plane for you?
Yeah, for you. What the hell's the deal there? So it was like the
anymore.
old OJ commercial. You go down, remember he's hurdling. That's
running.
basically what it was, running through here. We used to do that.
You don't see that happening anymore.
So anyway, the original question was great games, right? So that was the game. Centennial said that the Bell game, that was probably the greatest game ever. Of course, the CSU Pueblo championship year was great. The semifinal game against West Georgia, greatest single football game I've ever watched or done, and it turned out 10-7. I mean, it was a low scoring game, but it was
just a good
great
game.
teams.
Yeah.
They're fighting before the game started. They had a brawl on the field. If it had been the officiating crew for South and East, we wouldn't have had a game.
Yeah.
Because they were brawling an hour before the game, get everybody separated. Then the next week, the national championship game. That was great. That whole year was awesome, that 2014 year. 2012, I think it was, the Thunderwolves beat. They went into Kearney.
And this was before the Thunder Bowl and all that stuff, right?
No, they built the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt was there. See, they built the Thunderbolt. They had to slap that stadium together in 6 months before
the first game. Then
I'll
be darned. I didn't realize that. I guess
they wanted to have an on-campus stadium,
right?
So against Nebraska Kearney, we did the game in 2012. That was the first year they won the conference. So we went into Kearney and beat them there. That was a great game. So they're great. The basketball games, there have been some great finishes. Of course, Ty Traherne hitting the hook shot. That's my greatest YouTube video. Anybody wants to see it when he hit the hook shot to win the game.
When I was in high school, at the half, South was getting beat, and Jim Golob did a full court hook shot.
At Coronado.
Yep. And boom.
Yeah.
Swish, as you would say.
That would have been 75.
Yeah, probably 75.
Or 74. 74, 75 season.
Yep. And it kind of turned the tides of the whole game for the second half.
Against the old Coronado Cougars.
Yep.
Up there at their place.
Yeah.
I remember listening to that one on the radio.
Probably Harv Holiday calling it or something.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. And, some great games and past years.
Well, sports is a big thing in Pueblo, obviously. We're going to talk more about that coming up here. It's Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on Kpht 95.5, Pueblo's greatest hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, Kpht 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks, voice of the pack, football, basketball, all that good stuff. How'd you get into that gig? Did you do Crusaders football or any of that stuff?
I did maybe. My original entry into radio was 1981.
Oh, that was a while back then, yeah.
that's when Jeff Orman, Wes Boucher, and Uncle Rex. Remember Uncle Rex?
Yeah, well, yeah.
K-Pub. But they would do the Friday night, game of the week.
Right.
Whatever. And I was doing county live reports. I would go out. In fact, I'd go out and interview Denny Stilson as part of the pregame show.
Denny,
so we
sure.
always did. We never did a county game live, but they wanted to cover them. So they had me doing live reports. So I'd interview Denny Stilson as part of the pregame show. I'd do 3 minutes. So that was my introduction into interviewing people before games. So Jeffrey would put that on as part of the broadcast, and they'd throw it out to me doing live reports of every quarter. Every quarter they'd come out. Let's go out to Pueblo County for this live report. So I would do my basic a minute. I had to get it in before their next play.
Right, for the next play, yeah.
So that's when you learn to be brief, and just recap what had happened in the game. This touchdown happened. This is the score. We're back to you. And so my greatest we talked about bloopers earlier before.
Right.
So I'm doing the Pueblo County Hornet game, and so it was halftime. So you can imagine instead of Hornet, I said Hornet. We're being entertained by the Pueblo County Hornet cheerleaders here at halftime. And so this is early in the report. So I just said that. And I'm trying to pause, and I'm going, oh, my God.
Because you caught yourself.
I just said that. So I give the report, throw it back to Jeffrey, and all you can hear is laughter.
I was going to say he couldn't let that
Uncle
one go.
Rex and Wes and Jeffrey are just laughing their heads off at how did that kid get that report in after saying that? We were basket cases here and everything. So that was basically what I did that year. Then another year after that, I did rye reports because they could sell that. It was easy. So we used to do all kinds of things to sell things. So I would go down to rye, but their games always went over on basketball. So I got to do play-by-play of rye basketball. Basically, because I was down there to do reports, but their games always went over and started late. So it ended up being me doing about sometimes the whole game. Because their games would go so late, so they'd throw it over to me. So I'd do the rye basketball.
So you would just finish, this game would finish, and then you would take off with that.
Or if it was still in prior, they'd come down to me for reports. So I was doing a lot of live report stuff. So I did that. And then eventually I got into the booth with Jeffrey and worked alongside him and Barkley Clark.
Barkley.
And then about 86, Jeffrey got in a little trouble. So So they basically put me on the USC gig. So I did it. And I came in right when Joe Folda, he got the job because Dragmeister he was going to be the coach. I remember that episode. And then he just quit like 3 weeks before the season started. Said, I'm done.
And Joe Folda
was
the
So they brought Joe Folda in.
director.
So Joe and I basically, we did those 5 years, 86 to 91 basically.
Wow.
So then they let me go there at the radio station because they had to, Paul Jones, we need a full-time guy, Jim. I just can't have you just freelancing
Here and
doing
there.
these games.
And
I go, all right, whatever. All right, I understand. But we'll still have you do a high school game once in a while. So I did it. I did a couple state championship games for high school for South girls. And then got let go there.
Which South had some fabulous girls basketball
Man,
teams.
they were dynamite. Man, were they awesome.
Yeah.
They were awesome indeed. It was crazy how good they were.
Yeah. Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on Kpht 95.5, Pueblo's greatest hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, Kpht 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Jim Brooks, voice of the pack, and you guys are getting after it tomorrow, right?
We are indeed. New Mexico Highlands in town. Revenge game. Lost to Highlands last year down at one of the, we've had, we talked about the best games we've done.
Right.
There have been some worst games in history, too. That might have been one of the worst.
Can they be any worse
than
than the Broncos were the other night?
Oh, my God, that was terrible. That was the worst professional football game I've ever watched.
Yeah, but
and you had a rooting interest in it. But yeah,
yeah,
that was terrible. But yeah, last year we lost to Highlands down there at their place, and it was kind of maybe one of the low points of the new revamped program.
Right,
so they want to get revenge on Highlands this week.
And things been looking good, boy. Some big numbers with the offense here the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, they're turning around. They played their 4 toughest games to start the year. So they're 1-3. Everybody's asking, oh, man, they're in trouble. Is Riston on the hot seat? I go, I heard that one. I go, is Riston on the hot seat? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's won how many games?
Yeah, exactly. But I guess, success breeds,
right.
that kind of expectation,
Right.
I guess. But, I think they're turning around. They made a change at quarterback. So they're going to Hunter Roque. That's an interesting story there. I got a note from his mom this week. I started off the year calling him Roque.
Okay.
It's spelled Raquet. I go, that's got to be
Roque,
French.
that would seem right.
Roque.
Yeah. Like
So,
Chevrolet.
Yeah, so I'm going Roque to start the year. So we're at Mines or wherever they got on the program. It says Racket. I'm going, his name ain't Racket. I go, it's got to be Roque. So I'm telling. I go, no, that's what they told us. So Joe and I go, well, we've been wrong the whole time with this guy. We better find out.
Yeah,
so
we
we
better
started asking some of the people at the issue pub. I go, yeah, it's racket, like tennis racket. They go, there I go into Jeffrey. I go into Jeffrey Orman a lot. I don't
Every
know
once in
why.
a while.
Yeah. But so we call him Racket. So I get this note from his mom this week, just friendly. She goes, my son, but Hunter, it's not Racket, it's Roque, Rahkay. Phonetically. That's
You're not going to
that's how
argue
we do
with
that.
mom.
So it's like, okay. And I told her, I go, man, damn it. I go, we asked him before the game before. Because we knew he was going to start. We got to get this guy's name right. Even Riston told us, it's Racket. It's like, no, okay. Well. So I get the note, so I'm going, gosh, dang it.
So the new quarterback, Raquet.
It's not it's Ra.
Roque.
Roque.
All right, the new
Roque.
quarterback, Roque, has kind of been turning things
Yeah,
around.
he can spin it, man. He can throw the ball. It's amazing how tight a spiral he can throw the ball.
Wow.
And he played great last week down at Adams State. And so, yeah, I think they've turned it around defensively. They're coming on. So, they played their 4 hardest games to start the year. Now they should. That's I know. Here
knock on wood.
They just want to go 1-0 this week. Okay, go 1-0 this week. Then we can go 1-0 the rest of the year. Each week. But in theory, they could end up 8-3, still make the playoff game. Everybody thought playoffs were over with, but everybody's kind of eating themselves alive in the conference. So they play everybody that's ahead of them. They aren't going to catch Mines, of course, but they can end up second in the conference and still snake a playoff game. So, yeah, every game's a big game from here on out. It starts with Highlands on Saturday. We're looking forward to it.
So you can start that game, or you can listen to that game on Fox Sports Pueblo 1350, our sister station, but you can also watch this game.
You can watch the game at 2, but, I got them moved back. That's a funny story. I told them, hey, we can't start the games at 2 for television because television needs a lead-in. So we had a big meeting. I said, okay, we got it back to 2:02. So we actually take the air on radio at 1:30, do our pregame show. We talk to Riston. So we do the keys of the game. So Joe and I kind of, freelance there for a half hour.
So they will have the camera on you guys tomorrow or not?
Well, we'll find out. They may have the old cigar cameras in the booth, so they may be able to see us actually working the ball game. But, yeah, we go on the air at 2 on television, but on radio, at 1:30.
1:30.
And then television cuts off. Then we have the post-game show. We go back to radio. So it's kind of it's called a simulcast is the actual.
Kind of, yeah. But you got the guy doing it has to wrap their head around what's going on.
Right.
The whole time.
So we got a monitor now. So actually when you hear us calling the games now, you'll be able to hear us describe replays. And so it's a little different. It's kind of a TV broadcast, a radio broadcast wrapped inside a TV broadcast. It's much too much talk for television, but they have to remember our first job.
You've got to fill the time, fill the time.
That's what we're doing there.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Nick, it's been a pleasure. I loved
it. Absolutely. No, I appreciate
you. Need me next week? We can just do this over and over. I've got some radio ideas.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you do. The door's open anytime you want to come here, man. Jim Brooks in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits.